Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the GGW. This is co-lead commissioner Kevin Duff speaking to all of you today in this mock press conference that I'm going to be having today. I have a limited amount of space here on my iPod, so it's going to be quick and to the point. I asked my fellow commissioners to post any questions or concerns that they may have with the GWF as a whole, and I'll be taking questions right now. First question comes from fellow commissioner out of Texas named Mr. Amazing Armand Mosin. This is actually a very good question. His question is, my question is due to the fact that we only have 4 pay-per-views and we are doing them during the seasons. Could we use the GWF World Champions on our house shows and defend the GWF World titles even if we only use our wrestlers from our rosters that were the GWF World Champions? I'm going to break this question down into 2 parts. First part of your question, Armand, is that yes, we have a very relaxed schedule in that we're only doing 1 pay-per-view a season for the simple fact that we have busy schedules outside of the GWF. Such as myself, I have to deal with school and possibly having work. In terms of GWF World titles being defended on house shows and using only your talent to win GWF World titles off another talent that you may have on your roster, actually, I don't have a problem with this. But even if you're thinking about taking a GWF main title off another promoter, another talent, and putting it on the talent of the same federation or territory that you have, is still subjected to vote for the simple fact that it's a main GWF title which is subjected to vote. I don't have a problem with this in any form or fashion. I just hope that for the sake of the legitimacy of the titles that people have long reigns or medium-sized reigns. So that was a very good question to ask. Next question that I have is from co-commissioner Melody Bound of Japan alongside with me. She actually has a 3-part question, 3 separate questions. First question is, what made you want to be a commissioner of GWF? The reason why I wanted to become a commissioner in the GWF is because I've always been a fan of the wrestling business, and I've always been a fan of actually having some fun within the wrestling business aside from going to shows and meeting new people or seeing friends that I already know, or going there with friends that I already know. I wanted to do something in the GWF that was fun, concise, cool, and it's something that I enjoy amongst all of my friends and my girlfriend, that being you. So that's what made me want to become a GWF commissioner. Your second question, Melody, is how do you decide what talent you want in your Fed? This is a very good question. Well, there is a certain criteria aside from favoritism of talent coming into my roster. I wanted to see how they fare in a real life situation in the ring, or I should say in the cage, because we do incorporate MMA fighters from all around the world into the GWF. I feel that if you provide us with that spark, that energy, that legitimacy to our Fed, and you're willing to take your talents all across the GWF landscape, then by all means, you'll be a part of my Fed. That's really it. I don't care what country the talent is from. I'm not biased as to what country they come from. If you look on my roster, yes, most of the people on said roster are from Japan. Excuse me, half the roster is from Japan, a territory that we own. But if you look, I have Claudio Castagnoli. He's from Switzerland. I have all three members of Triple X. Low-key is from right across the water in Brooklyn. Daniels is from the Midwest, and Elix Skipper, he's from Canada. I have the Miracle Violence connection, Gordian Williams, and yeah, they're both here from the States. And Zack Sabre Jr., a great junior heavyweight from England that I picked up, and Johnny Storm, another great indie junior heavyweight from England. So I have pretty much representation all over the world. You could pretty much call my Fed the United Nations, I would say. So that answers that question. The next question I have is, what do you think of your partner in this game? Melody, you being my partner in this game, it takes a lot of cohesiveness, a lot of craziness, which I do like. A lot of that hardcore and women's wrestling, which you love so much, and so do I, will get put on your shoulders, and it helps us keep Japan flowing very nicely. I think you add a lot to the tape. You bring a lot to the table, and if I had a chance to promote you to a higher position, I would. But I'm really glad to have you on board with this project. And I'm very proud of you. And your last question, Melody, is, why does she call herself the Darkness, and why have you released her on the wrestling world? That is something that I didn't release upon the rest of the world. That was something that you chose to do, Melody. That's something that you wanted to do in response to what Sean of Mexico, the other co-leader, decided to do. So whatever you have going, that's entirely on you when it comes to Sean. I'm going to see if I have any more questions or comments at this time. And it looks like... Actually, I wanted to touch base on a couple of things in the GWF. First, I wanted to squash all of the... I wanted to squash, or bring up again, I should say, to bring up the aspect of having MMA in the GWF. In my Fed, there were two wrestlers that I brought in to be a part of my roster, and that's the World's Most Dangerous Man, Ken Shamrock, and Dan the Beast Severn. Both of these men are former NWA World Heavyweight Champions. And I felt like they were part of the wrestling game, so why not have them in place? So why not have them in place? But then in the previous game, I started a title called the Cage title, which is basically an MMA style title, which, and the rules are very simple. If you have prior MMA experience and you're on my roster, I can bring you in. You can compete for the Cage title. Now, Sean's question to me 4 days ago, it says, your picks are confusing. Why/how can anyone use MMA fighters in a pro wrestling game? would be like selecting footballers for a baseball game, unless you plan on reinventing them for a pro wrestling format. And I said, my response to him was very simple. If you recall, there have been MMA fighters to cross over to pro wrestling, like Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock, like I said before. Both are former NWA World Heavyweight Champions, like I said before. Also, there seems to be wrestlers getting into MMA, like Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar, both of whom became champions in the sport. If you were to do vast research on at least 2/3 of my roster have prior martial arts experience. For example, Yoshihiro Takayama, who fought in Pride FC in Japan before they were bought out by the UFC. Yuji Nagata, who was an Olympic alternate in judo. Shinsuke Nakamura, who uses Muay Thai in his offense. And Shinya Hashimoto. Shinya Hashimoto has prior karate experience and judo experience, to name a few. And I really don't see, because on my roster I had put quite a few names in the GPWA. Quite a few MMA names. Those names are Bas Rutten, who's Dutch,